David is crowned king. Though God had promised David that he would be king one day over all of Israel, David didn't seek to be king. After King Saul and his son Jonathan were killed in battle, the whole country of Israel was overrun by enemies, and the nation was in a lot of confusion. David probably wanted to take his men and go to battle against Israel's enemies, but he was learning to wait on God's timing instead of taking matters into his own hands. He remembered his former mistake and the problems that had resulted from his unwise actions when he fled to the land of the Philistines and didn't wait on God. So instead of acting on impulse and doing what seemed logical, David asked God what he should do. Should I go to the land of Judah, or should I stay in Ziklag? God told him he should go to the land of Judah. David then asked God what city in Judah he should move to. And God told him to go to Hebron, a city in the southern part of Judah. So David and his men quietly moved to the city of Hebron with their families, and they waited to see what God would do next. Well, when the men of Judah heard that David had returned to Hebron, they came and they anointed him as their king. Well, since David was from the tribe of Judah, the people of Judah felt a kinship with him. And David reigned over the tribe of Judah for 7 years and 6 months. He didn't run ahead of God by trying to take over the leadership of the other tribes of Israel. He just continued to wait patiently for God's timing. And as he was waiting for God's time, and he was learning to be patient. We need to learn that too. David wrote in Psalm 27:14, "Wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart." David learned that it's always wise to wait on God. Do you get in a hurry sometimes and not wait for God to work out your problems? That's easy to do, but God wants us to learn to wait on him. Well, since Abner had been the general of King Saul's army for many years, when Saul died, Abner decided that Ishbosheth, Saul's son, should be the next king. Of course, this wasn't his decision to make, for that was God's decision. But Abner set about to make Ishbosheth set up his reign as king at Mahanaim on the east side of the Jordan River. So Ishbosheth ruled over all of the tribes of Israel except for Judah, where David was reigning. But Abner wanted Ishbosheth to rule over all of Israel, even the tribe of Judah. So he brought some of his warriors across the Jordan River to Gibeon, a place that was just north of Hebron, and there Abner battled with the tribe of Judah. But David's men, who were led by Joab, were a lot stronger than Abner's men. And after a severe defeat, Abner's men finally gave up and fled. Well, as Abner and his men fled from battle, Asahel, a brother to Joab, remember Joab is the one who was leading David's men, okay? Abner and his men are fleeing. So Asahel and Abishai were fleeing from the battle. All right. Now, Abishai was known for being very light-footed, one of the swiftest runners in all the land. And he starts running after Abner. He's determined to kill Abner because Abner was a menace to King David. Well, Abner sees that Asahel is following, and he yells to Asahel for him to stop chasing him. Abner knew that it would be really easy for him to kill Asahel, but he didn't want to get in trouble with Joab because he knew that Asahel was Joab's brother. But Asahel just wouldn't stop chasing Abner, even though Abner warned him several times. So Abner ends up killing Asahel with his spear. Well, when Joab learned, and his brother Abishai saw that Abner had killed their brother Asahel, they were more determined than ever to defeat Abner. So Joab and his men pursue Abner and his army until the sun goes down. So in the fading daylight, Abner and his troops stand on top of a hill and they call out to the men chasing them. And they say, "When are you going to command your troops to stop pursuing their own Israelite brothers?" So with that, Joab realizes how wrong it was for these Israelites to be fighting against each other. So he blew a trumpet and he commanded his soldiers to give up the pursuit. So Joab's army goes back to Hebron while Abner returns with his troop to Mahanaim. Well, nothing had really even been solved by this battle except that a lot of God's people had been killed. And out of those 360 were Abner's men, 20 were Joab's men, including Joab's brother Asahel, the fast runner. Well, there was a long war between David and the descendants of Saul. But David became stronger and stronger, and the house of Saul became weaker and weaker. So Abner, Saul's general who had made Ishbosheth king, eventually becomes angry with Ishbosheth, and he remembered that God had promised that David would be the next king over Israel. So the more Abner thinks about it, the more he realizes that he's on the losing side. So he decides that he is going to desert Ishbosheth and he's going to join in with David. So first he sends messengers to David to offer his help in bringing all of the tribes of Israel under David's rule. And then he also goes to the elders of Israel to encourage them to make David their king. And he reminds them that David had delivered the people from the Philistines and that the Lord had said that David should be their next king. Well, then Abner takes 20 men with him, and he goes and he visits David in Hebron. Well, David treats Abner royally, and he made a feast for him and his men, and Abner offered to bring all of Israel under David's leadership. After David made an agreement with Abner, he sent Abner away as his friend and his ally. At last, God's promise to David would be fulfilled. Well, as soon as Abner and his men left David, Joab then returns from battle. Well, when Joab heard that Abner had visited David and that David had sent him home as an ally, Joab becomes furious. "What have you done?" Joab demanded. "Why did you let Abner get away? Surely you know why he came. He came to spy on you. He's only pretending to be your friend." Well, the real truth was that Joab wanted vengeance on Abner because, remember, Abner had killed his brother Asahel. Well, as he leaves the king's presence, Joab acts swiftly to go stop Abner from getting away. He doesn't tell King David what he's going to do. Joab sent messengers to overtake Abner and to bring him back to Hebron. Well, when Abner arrives back at Hebron, he was completely unsuspecting and unprepared for what was to happen. Joab takes him alongside the city gate, pretending that he just wanted to speak with him. And then with a quick thrust of his sword, Joab struck Abner in the side and kills him instantly. Well, when King David hears that Joab has killed Abner, he was greatly distressed. David prayed that God would not blame him nor his kingdom for Abner's death, but that he would let Joab suffer for the murder that he had committed. So David commands his people to tear their clothes, to dress into sackcloth, and to mourn for the death of Abner. And all of the people follow King David's example, and they join in the mourning of Abner's death. David refused to eat any food that day until the sun went down. And the people noticed this, and it pleased them. They were glad that they had a king that was righteous and not bloodthirsty. They knew by this that David certainly had nothing to do and had not planned Abner's death. David himself followed the coffin in which lay the body of the powerful General Abner. David lamented over Abner's death, even though Abner had been David's enemy for years. Well, now that Abner, Ishbosheth's strong general, was dead, the two men who were the captains of Ishbosheth's warriors began to plot against him. They could see that Ishbosheth was beginning to lose power. So if they could kill Ishbosheth, David would no doubt give them a handsome reward and a good position in his army. So they decided to kill him during the hottest part of the day as he was resting in his bed. So they come into the house with the pretext of getting some wheat, and they creep into his bedroom, and in an instant they kill Ishbosheth as he's sleeping, and they cut off his head. So they take Ishbosheth's head with them. They escape from the palace and they begin their journey to King David, and they travel all night to get to Hebron. Well, they present their grisly offering to David, and they said, "Here is the head of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, your enemy who tried to take your life. The Lord has avenged you this day." Well, they were quite surprised to learn that David was not pleased as they expected him to be. When one brought me news that he had killed King Saul and thought he was bringing good tidings, I had him put to death. How much more should you be punished by death when you have killed a righteous man in his bed? David says. Then David commanded that these murderers be put to death. So now, with Ishbosheth tragically murdered by his own men, the Israelites found themselves without a leader. The elders of Israel came to Hebron and officially asked David to be their king, saying, "Even when Saul was king, you were the one who brought victory to Israel, and the Lord promised that you would be the captain over his people." So King David made an agreement with the elders of the tribes of Israel, and they anointed him as their king. This was the third time that David was anointed. First, Samuel anointed David to be king when he was still just a shepherd boy. Second, after Saul died in battle, the tribe of Judah anointed King David over Judah. And now the rest of the tribes of Israel anointed David as king over all of the tribes of Israel. And though David had waited a long time for this to happen, he knew that God had kept his promise. David was now the king of Israel as God had promised. So David reigned over Israel 40 years. 7 years and 6 months he reigned over Judah. And then 33 years he reigned over all of Israel and Judah. David conquered the city of Jerusalem from the Jebusites, and he made that the capital of Israel. With its central location, it was an ideal capital. So David built up the city, and he fortified it as well as made it beautiful. David became Israel's greatest king. And the secret of his success was that God was with him and blessed him mightily. David was a man after God's own heart. One of the great characteristics of his life was that he never tried to revenge his own personal enemies. He learned to let God take care of his personal enemies, and he found that God always did in his own time and in his own way. And God wants us to do the same. In Romans 12:19, he says, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay." As David learned to wait on God's timing, so we need to learn to do that also. And we need to let God take care of any enemies we might have. When we try to get back at people who don't like us, we do it wrong and we sin against God. Maybe we need to ask God to help us learn to wait on him and to let him take care of those who don't like us.